Okay, great. So today, special day, I have been prepping for a few days now on talking about how to select the right sports fuel products for yourself. And also, I asked in advance some questions from you guys in terms of what questions do you have and what can I answer? And obviously there was some personalized questions in there and I can't really specifically answer those, but I tried to take, for the most part, those as a guide to help establish what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to just get right into it here. But first and foremost, I want to introduce myself in case you are new to meeting me, but I'm Alex. I am a registered dietitian. I'm an age group athlete myself, triathlete and runner. I did Ironman Wisconsin in 2014. And since then I have had two little babies. I have two boys. They are ages 2 and 4. And so right now I am just focused on running. I don't have time in my busy schedule to train for triathlons, but I am able to fit in running. So that is what my main focus is right now in my personal life. But professionally, I have my own business, Alex Larson Nutrition, where I work with endurance athletes to improve performance and body composition through a flexible eating style. So I work a lot on that everyday nutrition, but also talking about how to feel really well around your training workouts so you can continue to train really, really well day after day, week after week, month after month. And then you can get to race day being injury-free, feeling really good about your training and ready to just execute that race day nutrition strategy and just have a really great day, start to finish. So that's what I'm all about, but let's just get to it. When it comes to sports fuel products, here are some really key things that I want you to think about when selecting your sports specific products, or if you're going to do real food, what are you going to look for? Number one, king, is always going to be taste. And the reason why is because if it doesn't taste good, you're not going to want to use it. And if you're not going to want to use it, then it's pretty much useless. There's really nothing worse than trying to gag down something into the late hours of your training ride or run or in your race, and that really sucks. So taste is always going to be very important. So when it comes to selecting products, it's a good idea to get a sampling of a variety of different products. I'm going to show some very popular ones that I myself have used or my clients have used, and talk about what does that mean for you in terms of like selecting the right products. So it's really important to make sure that you try the products, and if you actually enjoy them, definitely consider them as an option for you. But if you don't like them, it's okay. You don't have to feel bad. Everyone has very different tastes. I will say that some people have tried UCAN products and they love them, and some people have tried them and absolutely hated them. Same thing with like goos and gels, especially because those can vary in taste and texture. And so you need to find things that you really like, that are very palatable, have a variety of options, so that come in your training. If you get tired of one, you have other options that you can try. Another thing is portability. So how easy it is to carry on your person. Are you going to be needing it for a bike ride or a run or both? How are you going to carry that? Is it light and easy to carry, or is it going to require you to carry a lot of extra weight in order to have enough of it on you to fuel your workouts well? And then ease of use. If you are a newbie on the bike and you're not super comfortable with fueling while pedaling, ease of use is going to be a very big factor. Or if you are a very well-seasoned cyclist and you have no problem moving every which way on your bike and reaching behind your pouch, like you're in your jersey pouch to grab something, you can handle something with more of a wrapper and not have any issues with being worried about tipping over or crashing. That's very important to consider as well. And then nutritional contents, I will get more to this very, very soon. And that includes sodium. Do your sports fuel products contain both carbs and electrolytes? Do they contain one or the other? Do you mix them with fluids and include hydration in that? And then what are the ingredients? So these are just some key things to think about when choosing a product. All right, so let's talk through that nutritional content piece. So carbs are always going to be king when it comes to what you're looking at with your products. And as I'm talking about this, feel free to write questions and comments in the comment section here. So common carb sources that you'll see, dextrose or glucose will be two that you'll see in there. Those ones are very fast, readily available carb sources. They're a very quick energy source. So if you are, feeling like you're low energy and you're needing something very, very quick, something with some glucose and dextrose will definitely hit the mark there for you. Maltodextrin is another one. Maltodextrin is not super sweet, but it will give you a very quick spike in energy. It just won't last very long. It has a very high glycemic index, but it also typically has a lower risk of causing GI issues with maltodextrin. So if you have a finicky stomach, maltodextrin might be an ingredient that might be friendly for you. Cane sugar is another one that you might see. Very, very palatable, very, very tasty. Usually gets absorbed quicker than things like fructose. Fructose is that fruit sugar, but tastes really good, but usually gets absorbed faster than fructose. I would just be careful with food products or sports products that are just solely fructose. Fructose is the only carb source in the ingredient list, because if you only have fructose in there, it might cause some GI issues. It's best to combine fructose with some other carb sources. So you might see that here in a few examples that I provide, that fructose is in there, but it's blended with some other options. If you do have a sports fuel product that has protein in it, you might see something like a pea protein if it's going to be a vegan plant-based source, a whey protein isolate. Whey protein is one of the fastest absorbed proteins out there, which is why if you're going to see it in a sports fuel product that you take during a workout, that whey protein is probably going to be the top choice, because you don't want that protein sitting long in your stomach. You want it to get absorbed really, really quickly, because the longer things sit in your stomach, the more likely issue with GI you're going to have. Or you might see a soy protein as well. I am starting to see more and more fuel sources with fat and oils in there, likely because of the keto trend. Fat is a very energy dense option for people, but it's a very slow energy. It's going to slow down your digestion. It's going to take a very long time to empty from your stomach and get used as energy. So for your longer distance ultra endurance events where you're not going at a very high intensity for a long period of time, though, that is where those would fit better in. I wouldn't use products that are higher in fat or have any fat in them in some of your shorter endurance events where you're going at a pretty high intensity rate. If you're at a VO2 max above 70%, I would keep fat to a very, very low minimum. And then electrolytes. The big one with electrolytes is going to be salt. That is going to be the one that we are going to be focusing on mostly in this talk, because that is the one that's going to get the most heavily depleted through your sweat. And you want to get that one replenished, because if your sodium fluid balance gets off kilter, that's where we see, I don't know why that says receive broker of the year award. I forgot to eliminate that. But anyways, caffeine is going to be that last consideration for your ingredients. Is it caffeinated or not? And I'll show some different caffeinated options as well. Let's see here. Okay, so now we're going to talk about training your gut. This is a very important thing that endurance athletes need to do, especially the newbie athletes who maybe have had issues with taking in fuel during their training. If I hear from a lot saying, oh, I can't fuel with anything during, I get nauseous, I get all of these issues. So there's obviously some things that you can do, but first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're training your gut. And what that means is our GI tract is very, very adaptable. But we can't just all of a sudden start running one day and decide, I'm going to start running these long distances and I'm just going to start fueling with all of these different products and not potentially not even think that you're going to have any issues. Some people have an iron gut, and that's very, very lucky for them, but not everyone can just go 0 to 60 when it comes to fueling. So if you're someone that's had some issues or stuff hasn't sat well in your stomach, first and foremost, you want to start very, very small with taking in nutrition. Start it with maybe some of your easier workouts where your heart rate isn't going to shoot up super high, because when our heart rate gets up to a certain point, our body says, okay, I need to divert a lot of my blood flow away from my digestive tract and get it to the muscles where it's more highly needed. And so when blood flow gets diverted away from the gut, what that does is it basically slows down your digestive transit time. So things are going to sit in your stomach long, they're going to sit in your gut longer. And the longer it sits there and isn't being really used, the more likely you're going to start feeling, nausea, upset stomach, cramping, those types of things, because your blood flow is getting diverted to things that need it, such as your muscles. So when we slow down that heart rate a little bit, we can start moving that digestive system a little bit more. And as you become more and more in shape and your heart rate maybe stabilizes a little bit more, we tend to see a little bit more tolerability with things as well. So as you are increasing your training and progressing through your training program, you want to be trialing that nutrition, starting at very low rates of carb an hour. And as you become more tolerated to that, as your body adapts to taking in fuel and fluids while you're exercising, you can up that rate to what your goal rate of absorption would be come race day. That being said, things like gels, for example, where you're taking in a very concentrated source of sugar all at once, direct to the gut. Sometimes drinking some water with that can really help with diluting that and reduce some of the risk of some of those GI issues as well. And let's go to, okay. So also I wanted to talk, as far as finicky stomachs go, liquid fuel sources are going to get digested a lot faster than the solid fuel sources, which is why I want to talk about these first. So I have a few examples on this slide and then a couple more in the next one. So Martin gels are really, really popular these days because they are a hydrogel. They don't need to be consumed with a lot of fluids. You can consume them as is without drinking that fluid. That's that sodium alginate that's in there. That's the hydrogel. So the research is pretty interesting with that, but they do make a hydration mix in addition to the gels. So that's what I have here on the far left side. Is you can see the one packet is 80 grams in serving size, and it has about 320 calories. And that is pretty much coming from all carbohydrates. So that's about 80 grams of carbohydrate. You'll mix that with a half a liter of water and shake that well. And you have to think through, okay, so this is fructose and maltodextrin. So they are blending both there together. As I said, fructose on its own doesn't usually sit really well, but if you blend it with something else. So this is going to be a very quick energy source. It's not going to give you a long staying power. So you're going to have to sip this throughout your training ride or run or your race in order to supply that continuous source of energy. With the Gatorade Endurance, this is another popular one you'll see at races. One thing that you can do is you can research what is going to be at my race and trial using that in case you need to support yourself with what's at the aid stations. So one serving is about 24 grams, which is probably a pretty typical serving size. The Martin Energy packet is 80 grams, which is a much larger serving size than a lot of the other ones. So this will have about 90 calories per serving coming from all carbohydrates. And this has a table sugar, so sucrose, essentially, a maltodextrin and a fructose. So this one has a little bit more diversified sugar sources. And the thing that's interesting about this is that usually the more variety of sugar sources that you're going to get, because they won't be competing against each other as they get absorbed, because fructose has a different metabolic pathway than sucrose would or maltodextrin would. So it actually will increase your rate of absorption. So it'll get that energy to your muscles faster than if you were to just get one source of sugar from just maltodextrin or just from sucrose. You'll see there's also some electrolytes. That's one thing I didn't mention about the Martin product, is that one has about 200 milligrams of sodium per 80 grams of serving size, versus the Gatorade Endurance has about 300 milligrams for 20 ounces. So that one's going to have a lot more sodium in it than the Martin will. And then there's UCAN. Like I said, everyone's a little bit different in what they prefer in terms of taste. Some people, I feel like UCAN's a love it or hate it product. This has a similar serving size to the Gatorade Endurance, so about 90 calories, mainly coming from carbohydrates. There's 140 milligrams of sodium here. And what's interesting about UCAN is they have what they call a super starch. So it's a cornstarch. It is meant to have a slower rise and fall of your blood sugar. So it's going to provide a steadier source of energy to you than the quicker, like maltodextrin will provide. Scratch Labs will also have a very similar product to this. I didn't put the label here in this presentation, but you can always go to Scratch Labs website and check out their, I don't know if they call it a super starch, but it's a similar concept. In theory, they say that it's supposed to cause less GI issues in athletes. The research doesn't prove that, but for some people, they do notice that it doesn't cause as many issues. So, and with the UCAN, it's 1 scoop to 8 to 12 ounces of cold water. Whereas the Gatorade Endurance, you mix with 12 ounces of water as their directions. So, all right, let's talk about Tailwind. I have a lot of athletes that use Tailwind. That one's a mix 2 to 3 scoops with 20 to 24 ounces per hour for longer efforts, or 1 to 2 scoops an hour for shorter efforts. So you can kind of adjust the amount of Tailwind to the liquid as needed. But 1 scoop is about 27 grams, so similar to what the UCAN and the Gatorade Endurance serving size was. 100 calories there, so a little bit higher calorie, mainly coming from carbohydrates. There's no real protein or fat in there. And sodium-wise, it's about 300 milligrams, so pretty good size amount of sodium. In terms of sodium recommendations, there's no real set guidelines, but a good starting point is about 250 to 500 milligrams of sodium an hour. If you are a salty sweater, I have seen some athletes that are losing over a gram of salt an hour. So they're looking at 1,000 milligrams or more of salt an hour. That's a lot of salt, but you need to replenish that, especially for longer efforts of training and races. So really important to make sure that you're getting enough, and getting it through like this, something like this Tailwind is just means that you don't have to supplement as much elsewhere, whether it's through other sports products or like salt tablets or like base salt or something like that. And then here's the normal hydration mix of Scratch. I didn't put the super starch Scratch product in here, but this is just like their strawberry lemonade. You can see the ingredients here. Cane sugar, dextrose are the 2 main sources of sugar. Very similar to Tailwind, a little bit more sodium in the Scratch. But other than that, pretty darn similar. The Tailwind, they use dextrose and sucrose as well. So pretty much very similar products. The directions for Scratch is 1 scoop to 12 to 16 ounces. So All right, let's get to the gels, goos, products. Hemogel was one that came up as a topic when I was asking questions about this. These are very interesting products because they use like a fruit puree and then a cane sugar. So this fruit puree is going to be mainly fructose. It'll have some glucose in there, but it's going to be mainly fructose. And then you get your cane sugar and brown rice syrup. And then they also use a powdered chia seeds, which kind of gives that gelatinous texture to that gel. And then there's a strawberry concentrate for flavor and then sea salt. So an additional source of sodium here, 100 milligrams per serving, very little fat, very little protein, mainly coming from carbs, and 100 calories, which is pretty standard for most gels. The one thing about like the 100 calorie per serving, if you're doing an event where you are looking at, like, especially for a marathon, you're looking for a marathon, you're looking at over, 4 hours or more, you're looking at probably needing anywhere from 60 to 90 grams of carb per hour. And for a gel that's only got 20, 22 grams of carb in it, that's three gels an hour. Over the course of 4 hours, you're going to be carrying over 16 gels with you. That's a lot to carry. So I'll show you a couple products that might be a little bit higher in calories. That'll be on the next slide, but just something to think about is portability and like ease of use. And so are you going to be able to carry all that, or can you supplement using what the aid stations supply? Doing that research can kind of help you plan through what that looks like. And also, when it comes to aid stations, they don't always have what you need. They might run out, it might be a day where everyone's just grabbing gels. And by the time that you get to the aid station, they don't have any more. Like that could be an issue too. So I always try and think through, make sure you have enough on you to get through the event, but you can supplement with the aid stations as needed. This Cis Gel, the Sport in Science product in the bottom left here, that's a salted strawberry. And then the salted caramel, I wanted to provide some savory flavor options, because for the longer distance events where you're doing a lot of sweet flavored things, that can get really tiring and like mentally it just gets boring. And so doing some different flavors that have some savoriness to them can really provide you a morale boost mentally when it comes to fueling. So some of the salted products like these ones can give you a nice change of pace. So a lot of these ones use maltodextrin. You'll see those two bottom ones, the salted ones use maltodextrin, which is kind of interesting as well. And then the honey stinger one in the top right, that one uses honey, which is going to be mainly a fructose and glucose blend with that fueling. So they don't use a lot of variety there, but a lot of people love like maple syrup and honey stinger, as those are just kind of a natural energy source there. And that one has 110 calories per packet. Okay, and then I wanted to share about the Martin gels because, like I said, those ones have really come into popularity lately. They're going to be offered at Boston Marathon. They're offered at the Ironman events. And these are the hydrogels. So that sodium alginate that's in there, that's the hydrogel part. So they don't really require you to take fluids in. Sorry, I have a cold, so I have to wipe my nose. They don't really require you to take in water with those gels. Usually when you're taking in gels and getting that concentrated source of sugar, you want to take in some water with that to help dilute it in your stomach. But with these Martin gels, that's not necessarily the case. But just because you don't have to take fluids with them doesn't mean you shouldn't. You still want to make sure that you're following your hydration plan and staying well hydrated throughout your training and throughout your race. And then the bottom right one is the Awesome Sauce. This is a Spring Energy product. They have some interesting ingredients. If you want to go more of the real food route, I'm not saying that's any better or worse than the other products. It's just nice that we are lucky enough to have that option to have a different variety. And so this one has a basmati rice, an apple juice, apple sauce, yams, maple syrup. So this one I would imagine Actually, this one tastes really well. I have an ultra distance runner that loves these. And here's the thing that's really interesting about this is that per packet, so this is a 54-gram packet, so a little bit larger packet than some of the other traditional ones. This has 180 calories. So when it comes to, again, that example I gave on the marathon, a 4-hour marathon needing, 60 to 90 grams of carb an hour, this one would provide you with 80, looking at the wrong one, 45. So almost, pretty much twice as much as the other ones. So you wouldn't have to carry as many. So I think that's really kind of interesting. And the Spring Energy does have a few other products that kind of fit into this, but I do like this Awesome Sauce one. It's very tasty. And then the top right one, this is one I wanted to throw in here because of the 10 grams of protein in there. And why this is important is for training workouts that are in the 3-4+ hour mark of length of time, it's not a bad idea to include a little bit of protein at the 3-4 hour mark to just help delay or prevent that muscle breakdown that can happen with really long, prolonged workouts. Does that improve performance? No, not at all. Adding that protein in there isn't going to make you perform any better. But for really hard, long training blocks, adding that little bit of protein in can help with recovery and just helping, again, keep you strong and healthy throughout your training. It's not something you have to use, but it's just, again, something I wanted to share. If you kind of struggle with muscle recovery, this could be something that you could do as well. And this Fuel for Fire product is really neat. Though keep in mind, this one's expensive. Some of these products, I think the Spring Energy is a little under $3 a pouch, but this Fuel for Fire one is around $3 a pouch. So, I mean, this stuff can add up cost-wise as well. And then other options outside of the gels and the hydration mixes would be like your Honey Stinger Energy Chews. I really like these a lot. I personally use them just because I love the texture of them. With some things like gummy bears, for example, which actually work really, really well as like a cheap energy source. If you're, in a pinch, like the Haribo gummy bears, not the sugar-free, the full-on sugar ones are great. But those, and like the shot blocks are great too, but they're really chewy. It's like gnawing on a really like intense like gummy. And so what's nice about the Honey Stinger Energy Chews is they are really soft. It doesn't require a lot of chewing to get it down. So I do really like that. And that uses a tapioca syrup, regular sugar, honey, grape juice concentrate. So it's got a few different energy sources there, and they do taste really good. And then the waffles are super popular, especially with cyclists, because when you're out there for long hours, sometimes it's nice to actually chew some food, get something in your stomach that's kind of solid. When you've been out, eating just liquid energy sources, sometimes getting something in solid is really nice. And those have 150 grams or 150 calories per waffle, which is pretty good. That's 21 grams of carb. So again, just a nice way to get some additional calories in. They are really, really sweet though. So you'll want to just make sure you have plenty of water with to kind of quench that thirst from them. And, and I've shared the Scratch Energy 2 options as well. Very similar to the Honey Stinger. Keep in mind that Scratch Energy 2 packet is 2 servings per container. So that whole package will have 140 calories. So similar to the 160 that you get from the Honey Stinger one. And then I just provided a list of real food ideas. When I did Ironman Wisconsin, I did a combination of both real food and sports products. The soft boiled potatoes that I boiled in like some salt water were amazing. I've seen some people do sweet potatoes as well. Dates are really, really nice. They don't have an aftertaste at all, and they go down really nice. Fruit always works. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich, cereals, as I mentioned, gummy bears, Fig Newtons, pretzels, chips, goldfish. Those kind of offer some different flavor profiles, some salt for those really long workouts as well. Okay, So I realized this got kind of long, but a lot of good information, and happy to answer any questions now or in the future. I do want to just share that my nutrition coaching program, I do currently have openings where I can provide that personalized one-on-one support to help guide you through that race day planning, the trialing of everything throughout your training, making sure that we work you slowly up to the goal absorption rate that you're looking to need to achieve on race day, talking through that daily nutrition, that everyday nutrition, so that you're recovering really well, you're continuing to perform well day after day, week after week, and staying injury free. Like, that's always really important. And always thinking through, how can you balance life as an athlete and as a real human being? Like, what does that look like nutritionally for you? And having a really good relationship with food and a good relationship with your body as well. So if you have any questions at all, you know how to get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me through my Facebook group, through my email. Happy to chat more at any point about any of the information I presented today. Thanks for listening. Have a good day. Bye.